In particular, a project that I was part of over the summer called the Paddle in the Park contest. In its first year, we hid 6 paddles through parks throughout the province, basically creating a scavenger hunt, hoping that people would get outside. It so far has been really successful, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that later. But the reason, what I'm actually hoping is that you guys will also join in outdoor advocacy, because I think it's important, and there's 2 major reasons why it's important. And the first, obviously, is that we're supposed to be thinking outside, but we don't do that very often. Inside is really, really comfortable. It's not dirty or dark or wet or cold or hot. There's no bears, no dirty little critters. We get offended at 1 bug in our homes. And it's flat, which is a highly underrated comfort. To any of you campers out there. This isn't a judgment, it's just, that's the way things are nowadays. And in fact, they were pretty bad by the time I was a kid. When I was a child, we had a rule where if it wasn't raining, you were to be outside. No ifs, ands, or buts. Didn't seem fair. There's lots of neat things inside. Puzzles, games, of course TV. When you're like 6 or 7, that's a big deal. That was the rule. If it wasn't raining, you were to be outside. And all the whining and complaining that I admittedly did wasn't getting me out of it. So very often it would involve an old lady chasing me outside. And not to sound too cliche, but at one point it did involve a broom. But here's the thing, once I was out there, I loved it, because I was a kid. You went out there, you discovered, you climbed rocks, you caught frogs, you built forts, even though at the time a fort basically just meant a rope and a tree. You went out and you discovered, and that was what was important. And what I didn't realize, what that little brain didn't realize at the time, was that I was setting a baseline for healthy living by being outside on a regular basis. And you can always watch TV when it rains. Later in life, this became more and more important and more poignant because later in life, I stopped going outside. When that little guy started growing up, or at least looked like a grown-up, started working, I was basically going from my house to my car to work. So basically a car would drive me from one inside to another. When I had some time on my hands, the first thing I would do is go back outside. And for a while I started to think about why I felt so much better. And was it just like the fresh air, or was it just being away from work? But it was really being outside. It was good for me. And clearly I needed an old lady with a broom at the time. Which is why I got into outdoor advocacy or the outdoor industry. And contrary to popular belief, we don't get into this industry necessarily to spend more time outside. That's a huge bonus. But actually to get other people outside. And the reason why we do this is because we have realized that it's so good for you. It's so good, in fact, that we came up with this idea. Actually, I shouldn't take credit for it. It was my friend Fiona from Badger Paddles. She came up with a list of 9 rewards for getting outside, which introduces the second concept, or the second major reason. And that is, like I said, it's good for you. And she came up with 9 rewards for getting outside. She created an infographic, she published it. And then one day, she gives me a call. And her and I have talked on the phone quite a bit, and we talk about things like this. And she said to me, I got a neat idea. What if I were to hide a paddle? Or more specifically, what if I got you to go hide a paddle? And I said, okay, I'm intrigued. And so we started thinking about this idea and really making it into a contest where, as I said, we would just basically hide a paddle somewhere in Ontario, somewhere along the Portage Trail, and hope that someone goes out and looks for it. And we decided that this paddle was going to be the new reward. So the list of 9 became 9 plus 1. And it basically just symbolized what everyone here knows. And that is, it's rewarding for being out there. And so we created a website. We told everyone we knew about the contest. We went on social media. We decided that we would create these little cards and tie them to the paddle in case someone hadn't heard of the contest, picked it up. First thing they read was, congratulations, you're a winner, in case you didn't know. And after a while, we started thinking about how we were going to entice them to come to tell us about the paddle and their adventure finding it. And so we came up with sponsors, and we offered prizes, and that read on the card, you know, if you tell us that you found the paddle, we'll send you some more prizes. And then in a big coup, at least to me, we got a couple of celebrities as well. We got Mr. Kevin Callan involved and Hap Wilson, and they both agreed to hide a couple of paddles for us and even sign the little card, which was really cool on the one hand, but on the other hand, I was really starting to think, well, how do I get myself eligible for this prize? I want one of those paddles, and I want Hap and Kevin's signature. So we got all this involved. We set this contest up. Everybody started to know about it. And then, of course, it came time for me to go out and hide a few of these paddles, get Kevin and Hap their paddles. And as it turns out, what's really interesting is that I had a lot of fun going to hide the paddles. I went on my own little adventure that wouldn't have happened without the contest. And I started off at my home, drove to Algonquin, and then over to Killarney and back, about 1,200 kilometers in total in about 3 days, not to mention the canoeing and portaging I needed to do to hide the paddles. And me and my dog Nancy, we went out, we hid some paddles. We saw moose, we saw bears. We not once but twice helped a turtle cross the road. I got cursed at by an owl and screeched at by this falcon who actually swooped over my head as a reminder that the lunch on shore was his. It was a great trip. This was the kind of thing that we had hoped to create in other people. We wanted these adventures. We wanted people to see that. And Fiona and I started talking back and forth about it, and we're really excited about this. And we're talking about things like, you know, what if someone went out specifically to find these paddles on a trip that they hadn't planned before? What if they went online and they checked every little picture for a tiny little bit of, a tiny little clue? Because we knew that's what we'd be doing. And it would be a lot of fun to check that out. But of course, with the paddles hidden, we started to think about, well, you know, what if nobody finds them? You know, what if nobody looks for them? What if I have to go back and get them? Wasn't looking forward to that. But really what concerned us was, what if they didn't get what we were talking about? We weren't just like throwing prizes out into the wilderness. We're trying to reinforce this idea of rewards being out there, you know, the 9+1. So we waited, and almost immediately our concerns were assuaged, and because we started to hear back from the people who were finding these paddles. And every time someone would tell us about these paddles and what they found, it was always a great story, a great adventure they had gone on. They sent us pictures, And then they added, and what a nice bonus it was to receive this paddle, or to find this paddle. And that really made us happy, because these adventures were the primary reason to be out there. The reward or the paddle itself was the added bonus. It's my dog Nancy, by the way. One particular story stood out of all of them, and that was the story of Tim and Doug. And they had been friends for 14 years. They worked together for a time, very, very close friends, but they had never been on a trip together, lots with other people. And so they were planned and they were talked about, but they never happened. And we all know how that works with some friends. But the problem was Tim was leaving for Edmonton in about a month. And so Doug, having gone through all the pictures and figured out where one of those paddles were, decided the two of them, for one last hurrah, it would be the last chance they had, would go out there and find this paddle on one of those crazy day trips we all know about. They're going to wake up 2 o'clock in the morning, 1:56 as it turned out, drive all the way to Killarney. For them it was about 600 kilometers. Go into the park, find the paddle, drive home. They had to do this. And so they did. And already driving into the park, they had one of those great conversations that friends have early in the morning, sleep deprived, philosophy and such. They saw some wildlife, they got to the park, and they had already decided that this was a great trip, regardless of what happened. But they did enter the park. They paddled about 15 kilometers in, and they found the paddle. And they were really, really excited about it. In fact, when they got to the point where they figured the paddle would be, Doug stopped, waited for Tim, because they decided that they should go in together. And of course, they found it, big smiles. They sent us videos. We watch them frequently because they're excited, and the sense of accomplishment is right there in those smiles. But they paddled back, they drove home, and then they decided, and this is such a cool friend thing to do, there's only one paddle, but they decided they were going to have a paddle share program where each one would have this paddle and another one that had some meaning to them as well. And it turned out to be a great opportunity as well, because from this point further, this paddle is going to be an excuse to see the other person, even if they're in Edmonton. And so I imagine Doug calling up Tim and saying, hey, I want my paddle back. I'll see you in 2 weeks. So you can imagine, as one of the organizers, how proud and excited I was at just being part of this. And this is just one story. We had 6 finds, but we also heard back from a whole bunch of people who didn't find paddles. And they said the same thing over and over again. We didn't find any paddles. Give us more hints. But we had a great time. And here are some pictures. They sent us pictures of their trip. Fiona and I loved this. This was amazing. This is the type of thing an outdoor advocate really wants to hear and see. So, unfortunately, the paddle in the park contest is over now. You're hearing that for the first time. Rumor has it that the last paddle's been found. And Fiona and I had the same idea as soon as we heard the news, was that, oh, maybe we should go hide another one. We figured, no, we'll wait. But like I said, it was an amazing experience for us, mostly, to be perfectly honest. But from what we've heard, it was an amazing experience for everyone else as well. And those are the rewards that we didn't even think of when we started this contest. Yeah, there's the 9 rewards, which you saw flashing on the screen there, here and there. And then this paddle, or the +1, but the extra rewards that we received for being part of this. So it's It's really 9 plus 1 plus 1. And here's the thing. Maybe creating an elaborate province-wide paddle contest isn't necessarily your thing. But I urge you to do some type of outdoor advocacy because, like I said, it is rewarding, but it's also good for you. And it's good for the people that you send out there. And it's pretty easy to do. All you need to do is bring someone new along with you on your next trip, or show pictures of your last trip, and maybe inspire them to get out as well. Or if all else fails, maybe grab a broom. But they'll be the better for it, and so will you. Thank you for listening.